Only just got that. That's gonna burn your mouth. Ow! Straight in. Welcome back to Burning Boat Business, the podcast that follows the progress, success, and failures of our company, Burning Boat, as well as ourselves. Today is episode 16, moving along nicely.
Sweet 16.
The first thing I wanted to ask was, how is editing going?
I fucking love it.
Basically, for the past, how many days? 2 or 3?
Sure.
Couple days, we have been working separately on our feature-length films. There's kind of some room in our schedule to organize that, so you took your computer home.
I would say we made some room.
Yeah, we made room.
Yeah, we forced it. We definitely had to sacrifice some things, but...
For sure.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But we've been working on our feature-length films as the only thing
for
the past two days, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, including today.
Yeah.
It's like 2 right now.
So how's that going?
It's... It is great. I really have been enjoying it. Going through the film, I have both moments of ecstasy and moments of dread as I go through it. The moments of dread, one just happened today, actually, this morning.
I don't know, did you find something?
No, it was just, I thought...
Do you want to explain what you're doing first? It makes sense.
Sure. So I'm going through... So basically, we shot my film in April. And now I'm going through every single scene and taking screenshots of sort of the major points of every scene so that when I'm actually editing the movie, I'll be able to... Let's say I want to edit scene 78 into 79. I can pull out... I'm going to print those screenshots, I should have said. Then I can pull them out onto a corkboard and kind of edit the main points and kind of know how I want to lay it together before I even touch the computer. And another thing that's good is that you kind of go through the footage and you also take screenshots of anything that's kind of interesting that happened. Not necessarily like off camera, but we had a lot of shots that were just like 10-minute takes. For example, walking down a street in New York City, and you kind of needed to go through that, and then you find all these great moments, to the side of the shot or whatever, so that you have a catalog of all the kind of B-roll stuff or character building in terms of like New York City stuff. All that stuff is just really useful to have.
And once you get it printed, it's this like unique way of being able to see big chunks of your film all at once.
Right.
Something that you can't actually achieve just on the computer. You can't have that many frames up on your computer and see it all at the same time. You need a bigger space physically to do that.
I agree. And I still haven't figured out with the editing. So for example, some people would just mark the footage in the editing program. For example, take a 10-minute clip, go through it, and mark everything that kind of happens in that clip.
Yeah.
I still find that confusing, though. I do feel like it's better for me to be able to see a picture of a close-up of something and be like, oh, right, that's somewhere in this clip. I know that's there. And constantly be reminded by seeing it rather than having to remember it and then going into the program and being like, where was that part that I remember of this? Because I don't trust my memory quite as much.
And there's also a bunch of stuff that happens where it's like you'll reorganize the stuff around and suddenly you'll place 2 different frames next to one another that you hadn't planned on putting next to one another. And suddenly you're like, oh my God, that works.
Right.
Let me actually try and do that in the editing program
Right.
and come up with things that you wouldn't have otherwise come up with. The reason why I know this is because I did this for the first portion of the film that I shot. I printed out every single angle from that shoot and put it up on 12 cork boards and hung them, suspended them from the ceiling so I could walk around them 360. And every so often I would just move stuff around.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh, I'd never thought of pairing these 2 shots. And it's just very, very visual and very interesting way of working.
Something about, I think a lot of people work well that way. I mean, it's the same when I was writing the script, and I think you're doing the same. It's like you write index cards and then you start to piece stories together. It's just such a large story. It can be hard to keep it all on a
for sure.
It's hard to organize it for some reason. I just haven't figured out how to do it on a Word document. I think it's called Final Draft.
Yeah.
Is a program I bought for my mother, which I was using as well to write my script, and that actually has like a built-in kind of index card system, which I think is great.
Which is the only thing I'm using at the moment.
Right.
I'm going to talk about that in a sec, but you were saying an example of something, a dread moment that happened today.
Basically, there was a shot, this has happened a couple times, where it's like, I just get ahead of myself and I get so excited by seeing one thing. I'm like, I have to watch this other part of this now. We might have shot that like 2 days later. So I'll just go searching for it. I'm just like, I just want to see it. And there's this one scene, you'll know, I mean, this will confuse people, but you'll know, which is basically when Johan comes back, breaks into the room, which was that whole setup where we had to do a time lapse, then nobody touch anything because he's about to come. Could not for the fucking life of me find that clip.
Okay.
And I was like, wait, did we shoot that on a separate SD? Because I got in my head, I was like, I remember something weird happening because it was such a long take for the time lapse to begin with. It's like, did we not shoot dual SD? Am I missing something? I was about to call you up and be like, dude, can you check your hard drive? I think I'm missing like half a day's worth of stuff.
Okay.
It was just hidden in one of the days in the middle, and I found it. I got so fucking pumped because it just runs through your head of like, did we forget to back that up? Did we? Because stuff got kind of crazy. It's like day 17 of our shoot or something. And I was like, I wouldn't put it past me. I know I double checked everything, but you are kind of delusional in that moment.
And that's why you have all of the systems set up going into a shoot where you have to have 2 SD cards and you do back things up on multiple hard drives, and you do have this very scheduled program of how to deal with footage so that stuff like that doesn't happen.
Right.
So that even if you mess up, you'll just have messed up once and at least it'll still be here or something.
Right.
You have to mess up a lot of times for it to actually be a problem.
I think that's it, but it's just such a massive, like...
Yeah.
Oh, that feeling of thinking you've I don't know, you're missing some footage and not even some like...
Something very important.
Whatever footage, yeah. So that's been mainly those moments. Everything else has just been like pure excitement.
What's like an exciting moment?
Like the Uber driver.
Like watching a scene that you haven't seen before and then just like realizing how
or watching,
interesting it is.
Because I noticed filming a movie can look quite... What's the word? Of like, it's the same thing we just had with the music video where somebody wants to watch the footage, but they don't really know where it's going yet. So it feels kind of awkward to them or like not quite there, which I felt with my feature film as well. But in my head, I was like, I think this works.
Yeah.
You know, there were moments where I was like,
you have to just trust it.
There's a whole crew around and everybody might be doubting you, but you kind of have to be like, well, just trust that in the edit, this is going to end up working out. So there's a few things like that where I would watch a scene that for the past couple of months I've been like, I'm not sure if that's going to work.
Yeah.
And then I watched it and I was like, fuck yeah. Like there's some really good stuff. Of course, I don't know how everything's going to piece together, but...
And even if there were a part that, say, didn't work, there's still so much that can be done once you then start editing.
Yeah, and exactly. That I think that's where the fun of it all is going to come.
Yeah.
Is like how to make things work. So yeah, it's been a bit of a menial process as well, I'm not gonna lie, because you're literally going through
menial. What does that word mean?
It's like it's just sort of like
repetitive.
Yeah, like boring, repetitive a little bit. Kind of doesn't take a lot of effort, I guess.
Right. You can be doing it and maybe not have thought about what you're doing.
You go a bit on autopilot at times. Yeah. Because also the thing is with a lot of my scenes, it's going to come down to, I can get all the major points, but I want to watch those 10 takes when I'm actually editing it, not when I'm trying to pull, because I can't move anything yet.
Yeah.
And you don't want to touch anything. It's been so tempting to start
looking at stuff.
And I'm really just trying, because I know it's going to fuck up my project if I start to like, I don't know, not follow the workflow. So I feel like I've got a good workflow going and I just have to stick to it, as annoying as it might be to have to go through, 21 days of footage. It's not annoying, but like I said, menial a little bit. So just finding ways to kind of break it up.
Yeah, I've been doing something a little bit similar with my project. So I've been basically transferring everything that I've handwritten and written on another screenwriting software onto this Final Cut.
Right.
No, Final Draft program that you gave me.
Yeah.
Which is it's just a program that allows you to do different things with your script. It has different layouts. There's a lot of tools. It's very
sort
useful.
of like the industry standard of.
Yeah, and I'm so excited about using it. But that has been a little tedious at times. And what it made me realize was that I should probably go through and, I have all that family footage that I got in tape form that I've transferred and digitized it all.
Yeah.
I've been trying to go through that and label it, so I finished digitizing the last 5 tapes that I hadn't done. And it's so exciting the first time you put a old tape in and it's from 15 years ago.
Right.
And you're like, oh my God, it's so bizarre to be back in that. But then you start to realize that it's the same kind of footage over and over again. It's always going to be a school performance, a birthday, a Christmas, or a summer holiday. And we went to the same place every summer. Okay. It's literally the same every time. And each bit has its own, interesting thing. But watching it all in bulk is just a little boring sometimes.
Yeah. Tedious is the word. That's the synonym for menial, right. I think. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
But that's what I meant.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just there's so much to do, and like you were saying, it's such a big project, either editing or writing a script, that you need some kind of system in place, multiple systems to organize the stuff and to work at it in a way that feels somewhat structured, so that you're not just kind of randomly going about it, that there's a process and that I think that's slowly kind of chipping away at the bigger thing.
Because the temptation is to have a great idea for your first scene and want to immediately write that down and go. And then what I found is you kind of just keep rewriting the same stuff because
that's what I'm realizing. And I've tried multiple times to start writing it. And I've written the first 20 pages 3 times now.
Yeah.
And I'm trying really this time around to get the story first in bullet point form or an index card form using the program. It's not a physical index card. And to have fixed the plot holes and the everything that needs to be done so that I can kind of sit down and write a first draft almost ideally in a single push.
Exactly.
From beginning to end, and at least get what I've done here onto a script and not chunks of a script and then realize that actually I need to rework this part and it's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
There's something to the process of writing down scenes and you start to realize that actually it doesn't work like that.
Definitely.
But I'm happy about the way it's going.
Nice.
Yeah. You mentioned already that we worked on a music video. I think that might be an interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So do you want to just tell us when and what and who and why?
We shot. Oh, by the way, with the working from home, one interesting point is exactly what I was trying to talk about last podcast, which was this thing. Last night, I think I was up to 1 a.m, still working, and that to me is what's so satisfying about that situation right now. Of course, I know that this would never work in the long term. I don't think I can really work in my bedroom. I've had that before. It's very difficult to separate kind of work from pleasure then, or just work from something else, because you're literally, that's why I was working at 1 a.m, because you're in your room and you're like, well, might as well go through some footage. But yeah, it's just interesting to see when I like to get things done.
I've also mainly been working in the evening as well. It's this
I've been
weird
enjoying
thing.
My mornings. And then, like I was saying, I think rather than doing an 8-hour chunk for this thing specifically, I think there's other things that I need 8-hour chunks for. For this specifically, I work much better of 45 minutes of work, 15 minutes of do something else, come back. And for me, that usually kind of lines up with a certain scene. So it'll be take me 45 minutes either to get through a day or a scene or whatever, quarter of a day, take a break, move on to the next scene. Because the worst thing that could happen in my eyes is that now I've dedicated this chunk of time to this kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
If I at any point get into too much of an autopilot mode and go through the footage too quickly, you know what I mean? Or suddenly like you're starting to skip stuff, then you're like, then this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like the reason I'm doing this is so that I take my time and go through everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very similar experience, especially with watching the family footage. At times I was like, oh, just kind of do something else while it's going.
Yeah, because
I
I
was
was
like, wait,
out. Yeah.
get my notes out, mark down what's happening.
Yeah.
Like make little notes about what's good and what can be used. It's just going to be so much more worth your time. And you're doing this.
Otherwise,
you might as well make the most
again.
of it. Exactly.
You're gonna get to the edit, and you're gonna be like, "Oh God, I gotta watch all this stuff again."
Yeah. But I've also been, I think, by not having like a you're coming over structured work day.
Right.
Other things have been like, kind of distracting me, like simple chores have been like just been able to take up a little more space.
Yeah.
So it's been a little harder to get started. Things take a little bit longer. So by the time it's like the evening, I don't feel like I'm at all done.
Yeah.
So I will keep going. And I did something that worked really well last night was watching a film that might have some kind of relevance to the structure I'm trying to create. And then every time something happened that I thought was interesting or it made me think about my own script, I'd just pause it and work on the script for a little bit and then just start the film again. Or what I've been doing basically the past 2-3 days is just listening to music.
Yeah.
And then when something happens, I'll pause the music, write it down, and listen to it again or listen to another song. Good. It's like a weird process of stimulating myself with something and then kind of something comes out of it.
Yeah.
I'm writing it down. But I'm still trying to work on a lot of big story points that need fixing.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm just adding to it. I don't feel like I'm necessarily taking stuff away. So like scenes that I have written in my head or actually written are still there, but they just have a new meaning or they're surrounded by other scenes that make it have it's just more. It just makes more sense. And it's not just a scene for this reason. It's it's a scene that actually plays many roles all of a sudden. Anyways, music video. We shot it on Friday. Our first music video, which is something that we really wanted to do when we started this company, was music videos, because it is something that is definitely more creative, or at least there's room for experimenting a little bit more than
totally
event videos, promotional videos.
And I think you have an opportunity to do something quite bizarre, or I guess unique or creative, whatever, because it's not going to eat up all your time. Mm-hmm. It's not like a feature film and you're deciding, oh, I'm going to do this style for 90. It's like, well, for 3 minutes. It's just really interesting exercise. Especially, we really like the song and the artist that we're working with.
It's
this
so permanent, I think, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's not like a scene in a film that will determine.
It doesn't feel as
it's contained and somewhat a little bit irrelevant if it doesn't work.
And it's also this interesting thing of like, well, you have the song and then you kind of come up with the idea for the song, which for me feels very like just listening to the song and whatever kind of pops into your head, you're like, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. It was a very simple process for us, I think. We just listened to, actually the artist already had an idea for what they wanted to do, so that really kind of was easy.
Yeah. So the artist's idea, can we talk about this?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like we've already shot it.
Yeah.
And now it's in our hands.
Yeah.
We're going to edit it and send it back to them.
Yeah.
So I think...
I mean, I don't think we're spoiling anything. Basically, the artist came in and said he was interested in fighting someone or having someone fight him. Sort of real life... Bare knuckle boxing with mouth guards. And that we would film it. And that's pretty much all he gave us.
He liked the idea of contrasting something really violent with a song that is somewhat soothing and calm. Right. Which I think is a great idea and always...
Yeah, contrast is...
works.
Key.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just went out on Friday without we didn't have a massive plan.
We didn't have a massive plan, but the thing that we immediately thought was, slow motion for 3 minutes of basically the same thing.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
Probably isn't going to work unless this is like top level fighting where people are seriously
top
getting
level
hurt.
Fighting, or if we had like a Phantom,
yeah, or an actual
really
slow motion
right,
camera.
exactly.
Yeah, so we shoot at 120 frames per second, which is 5 times slower than real speed.
Right.
But a Phantom camera can shoot at like 10,000 frames per second. You can see the tiniest of detail span, 30 seconds.
Right. We can't push it that hard.
No, especially without a budget.
No.
But we came up with some ideas or some solutions to get around this video just becoming boring.
Yeah, we definitely talked about it the day before.
Yeah.
And we kind of set up a very simple structure. Mm-hmm. We set up some key shots that we wanted to try that we knew would, work for the graphics afterwards. And then I did like that we kind of decided just to let them fight.
Yeah.
And we accepted that, okay, we'll figure out in the moment, however the fight ends up, we'll figure out then how to finish the music video.
Yeah.
Which was cool.
And also just we couldn't know what they were going to do or
right.
how far they were going to take it.
Yeah.
Who the other fighter was. It just made sense to come up with some kind of way to start the video, or at least some solutions to use if it were boring.
Mm-hmm.
And then just leave it up to on the day what happens and then decide.
Right.
Which worked quite well.
I think it's an interesting, I don't know, it was an interesting conversation between us and him, because I kind of got the feeling from him that he didn't want there to be any sort of structure, any sort of storytelling.
Yeah.
He wanted it to be very abstract.
Yeah, just ideas kind of coming in and out, no beginning, middle, or end, just kind of, it starts and you're in it, and it doesn't try to go anywhere or become anything.
Which is interesting, but I definitely have like certain problems with that, where I think if you watch something and you think that's what it is, like, oh, there's no structure, there's no story, I think there probably is if it's good.
Exactly.
You're just not.
I think to pull something like that off, it has to just be the best of the best in terms of, like, the camera work just has to be flawless. The thing happening on screen has to be something you've never seen before. It has to be something of a super high standard for the person watching the video to feel like it's worth their time.
Right. Because I just was exposed to so much shit like that in college, in film school, where it's just like being weird for the sake of being weird, as in you're using like weirdness as a tool to interest people. I think
not being that interesting.
Right, exactly. It's just a way to...
Storytelling works for a reason. And I think people are drawn to good stories, whether they are, someone literally narrating what's happening, or there's just a very basic premise that you feel like something has happened.
Right.
It doesn't mean that there's a real problem being solved or something that's obviously taking place, but it does make the audience feel like they're going on a journey, even if it's a very abstract kind of journey.
That's the thing.
I think that's key.
And you want the feeling that there is intention, in my opinion, behind the abstraction. Otherwise, why would you read into it as a viewer?
Yeah, if you say, let's make one of the characters,
or this fetus is gonna scroll down from the ceiling and land in a suitcase, and then you're gonna open the suitcase and there's a bunch of burning cash in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to have it. There has to be a reason for it, and it can't just be made up.
I agree.
And
but who are we to say that? I just think for ourselves, we're speaking for what. Well, show
me something that is like that, and I'd be convinced, I guess.
Sure.
I don't think it's something that is seen very often. Anyways, I think what we then tried to do was, respect the artist's vision for what this film, what this video could be, but still try and, we want to make it good too. And we kind of think we know what works, at least what we can do.
Right.
So trying to, push our view a little bit as well without it becoming a conflict. And I think we did quite well. And I think we explained to him that we're filming these establishing shots that he was maybe a little bit against or didn't see the point of, as you know, in case this idea doesn't work, at least we have something to work with.
Right.
And I think he was totally on board with that, and it worked really well. And
I think so too.
in the end, it'll be really fun to see what it turns into.
Yeah.
And we already cut some stuff, and it's cool.
It looks interesting, and I think it's on us to make it feel like a. Because the fight, and we both said that the fight wasn't.
Okay, yeah.
If I could go back, the issue was that you can't tell two people like go and knock each other out.
Well, I did.
Right.
I said one of you needs to try and knock the other person out, and then immediately.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I'm just saying that because I'm behind the camera and I can see what looks good and what doesn't.
Right.
It's totally up to you guys. I'm just saying that, especially because this is slow motion, you're going to be able to see that you guys aren't fully swinging.
Right.
Stuff like that.
So now the point is, although it does look, what would you rate it? I would be it's like a 7-8 out of 10.
In terms of like aggression or
like realism.
I don't know. I wouldn't even say it's that high.
No.
I take back what I just said. Being behind the camera, I felt like I couldn't see anything.
Oh.
Because I'm looking at this tiny screen and I'm just trying to make sure that they're in focus and that the background is the best it can be.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly focused on moving the camera and I'm not so focused on what they are doing. And all I can hear is like,
yeah.
And I'm like, wow, they're really hitting each other.
Oh.
And then afterwards, you're saying that they're just slapping each other. And I'm like, oh, I could not see that at all.
Right.
And that's when we started talking about like, are there ways that you guys can...
I think we definitely, we brought it up.
We did say what we thought, and it's totally up to that. I mean, it's so easy for us to say, like, knock the other guy out.
No, that's exactly my point.
It's not...
So I think now the point is not to make a video that people are like, oh, well, this could have been harder. It's like to make a video that people are like, oh, that's cool.
Use it. Don't try to hide it, but use it and turn it into what it can be and not...
And I still think cutting it together, we can probably make it look more intense than it was.
I agree. All right, so we already started talking about this a little bit earlier, but we said that we'd made time to work on our feature-length films, and that has definitely come at the cost of something else.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what that cost is?
Yeah, the cost is YouTube.
YouTube is definitely something that we have decided to not prioritize over feature-length film and our actual business.
Yeah.
Right now.
It really came down to there being three things that we wanted to do. One of the things isn't really debatable because that's the thing that makes us money, which would be...
Couldn't do the other things without this one.
Right, exactly. So it kind of came down to, if you want to call it our free time, do we want to spend that predominantly on feature films, on the feature films we're working on, or do we want to spend that time creating an audience on YouTube? And that's a very difficult sort of balance to strike.
And I don't think there's a right answer. I think both, for various reasons, should be prioritized.
Right.
But I think in our current circumstance, it just made sense to focus on one over the other.
Yeah, just so that the people listening understand, it's basically a question of, do you want to build an audience or do you want to... So YouTube, the idea is that we build an audience and over time, and that way we have people that are very interested in what we are doing, which is obviously going to be beneficial to us in the long run. Yeah. Right? If people actively want to see a Burning Boat feature film because we've built that audience. Then, of course, on the other hand, you have, well, we're working on feature films that are very real. We don't have the audience yet. So it's kind of like, I don't know, chicken and the egg. What do you go for first?
The product or the people to consume the product?
Right.
I think, again, I mean, I could argue both. But I think it's just good to also see how it works to be working on our feature-length films. Like, how much time does it actually take? Shift things around and prioritize this for a bit.
Yeah.
And see what happens with the YouTube.
Right. Again, it's a unique situation because I've already filmed the feature film, for example. So I'm not in the position of like, oh, I wish I could do this thing, instead of, it's like, well, there's two very real things that are in the works. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like...
It kind of became very clear to me when we were, talking about how to make the next YouTube video about starting to work on our feature-length films. How could we show in a creative, engaging way that we're now focusing on our passion and are working on our big ideas, and actually taking that first step of editing, or taking that first step of writing this screenplay, and realizing how much time it was going to take to create that video and to make it really good. And then
we were basically going to make a YouTube video saying we've had this massive epiphany and now we're working on our feature films. And the reality of it was we were going to have to shoot all this stuff on the side, take up all our time to shoot this video,
and not actually work on our feature-length
actually
films.
do the thing that we're saying we want to do.
And it was just a very sad moment for me, at least. I was just like, I don't want to spend all that time working on telling people that we're working on it and not work on it.
Right. And another weird thing is that I think something we didn't see is that as soon as we decided to up the quality of the YouTube videos, we're going into feature film territory.
Exactly.
Where it's like, well, if it's going to take that long to make this episode,
it has to be.
I'd rather spend the mental energy on my feature film.
Yeah.
Because that takes up that sort of part of my brain.
Yeah,
what
it suddenly becomes very good.
Right.
And we really wanted to create something really special, and that was above what a typical YouTube video would be.
We're shooting with like a green screen.
Like a short film.
It's like ridiculous.
Loads of effects. And, like we were going to storyboard, and we had like a script going.
Right.
Like
a little film.
Let's focus on what we're already working on.
We have films.
Exactly.
We don't need more. And what separated the feature film from YouTube for me in the beginning was that, well, YouTube was something that was like, oh, there's 3 takes of something, just fucking pick one, whatever. It's just more an exercise and like, here's an idea, let's turn it over in a week, and here's sort of the end product. And that's what was satisfying for it, because there was no pressure of like, this has to be amazing, just because for me it felt very much like...
It is what it is. And
it's what it is.
Something.
It's an exercise. I'm just happy, it's justified on the basis of, well, it's great practice for doing the feature film stuff.
And that formula wasn't working, even just that and the business, because we're starting to do so much for the business that we didn't have time to make weekly YouTube videos.
Right.
So,
or we had time, but it would have just been...
I don't know.
I always think we could figure something out.
But again, it comes at the cost of something else. It's
That's
like at least we reached the conclusion that what we need to do is only do it once a month. And then once a month means we can make these big, crazy videos. And we didn't really think about the fact that, well, if we're going to do that, we might as well put that energy into making our big films that are already
because it feels just adjacent to each other. It's like, well, yeah.
So I think,
we've basically decided to set a finale for this season.
Yeah.
I think, and that's going to come out on Friday. Now, one thing that did come up in my head was, if we're already going to call it a finale, why don't we pull through and at least do one full episode?
Because I think it brings... It'll be truthful to what's actually going on, and it'll start off like we wanted it to and envisioned it to, and it'll end off being real.
Yeah.
And I do think that works.
So I think the end is just, I mean, we'll talk about it afterwards. I don't want to spoil it.
We'll see what happens. But I think what we're doing is we're adapting to the situations that we're in, and we're moving forward in that sense. We're trying to come up with the best solution on a week-to-week basis, and that's why things are changing. And it's hard for us to say, all right, this is what we're doing, and then just sticking to it for the sake of sticking to it. I think we're trying to do the...
Which we had talked about.
To do the best we can.
It's hard to figure out sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's better to have a plan of action than to not have a plan of action.
Sure.
That's why we were like, okay, now we're going to do this.
Yes.
And then like now we're changing that again, but it's for good reasons. And I think if we can say that our new plan is to just be a lot more casual with uploading to YouTube. If we want to upload something, we'll upload something, whether it be a tutorial or more of like a vlog type video that just documents us.
Right.
And isn't trying to be something artistically super interesting. It's more just about, I think, documenting and just keeping up to date a little bit. And also it's fun to see what we were doing, a year ago, and that making a video about it, even if it didn't take that long. Just, oh yeah, I remember, being out on that job and having that conversation, and it's interesting.
Right.
And to just not lose I don't want to say momentum we've created, but lose what we've already made. And we do want to do YouTube, but not right now, or at least not focus on it right now. So just maintaining something.
Expect content to come out.
Yeah.
Just don't expect. I don't want to say good. I still think it's going to be great.
It's just not.
It's not an episode. It's not like a webisode series that takes days to edit.
It's just simple.
Yeah.
Simple stuff. Cool.
Until we hit season 2.
Who knows? Who knows what season 2 will be? Okay. Well, I think. Oh, right. Another thing I thought we should talk about was that. I know you keep saying it's still summer.
It is the endless summer.
It's
2018,
still summer, but it is coming to an end. The season is coming to an end. And endless. We still have not planned nor gone on a trip.
Yes.
We've talked, since I can remember, we said we should go on a climbing trip, whether it be mountaineering, whether it be rock climbing, whether it be a combination of both, some kind of week-long trip.
Yes.
To somewhere where there are mountains.
Yes.
So that we can actually do something out in the real world and not just on the climbing wall.
Yes.
And I think it's slipping away, and that we should really, if we want to do it, which I think we do, we should plan it and just do it. Figure it out.
I think I agree. Figure it out. Do it. I would like to know specifically when the season is for sure over. Because I don't know anything about.
Okay, so most mountains start to become winter climbs, meaning more technical because of snow, mid-October.
But is something like the fact that it's so hot now, so late, that's just
here, though?
It's just here.
I don't know.
Germany's having the same.
Okay, well, finish your thought.
I've just heard through the grapevine that some mountains are quite dangerous right now because it's not usually this warm so late into the season.
And what does that mean?
I guess higher avalanche risk or snow melt or stuff like that.
I haven't looked into it. I haven't heard about it.
Let's look it up.
But regardless, I think we should
plan a trip.
Let's do it, because I was like, wait, do we have time to do that? And I'm like, this is something I really want to do. Not just this year, but moving forward.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it is worth prioritizing and fitting in maybe at the cost of being, maybe we have to spend a little bit longer on a job, or whatever.
The money is kind of the main, but I think we can spin that.
Yeah.
And I think it will become. I really like when we kind of decided if we do something like that, we might as well make it a job. We might as well bring the film equipment, bring the Goal Zero, and shoot a ad campaign for them and send it to them. Be like, what do you think about this?
Yeah. Something that can just add a little bit more justification to it, so that it's not just for fun.
We're having fun.
This is awesome. Yeah. Which is a good enough reason, I think.
It is, but it's also a wasted opportunity, I would say.
That's more of what I think is a good idea about making it into something we can use.
Exactly.
So let's not do that right now, because we need to look at dates and what actually makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's definitely do that soon.
Okay.
And then I really like the way that you ended the podcast last time.
I know.
With some questions that just were to get to know Mads a little bit better. So I thought, let's do the same with Taylor's. I've come up with some questions.
All right.
I went and looked online, if you get into a new relationship, what are some questions you can ask the other person?
Oh, that's good for me to know.
Yeah. So I mean, these are
like small chat, like small talk.
No, like these are deep questions.
Deep questions.
It's like if you're on like a second or third date. I don't know. I don't date.
Okay. Yeah.
But just
I'll
something
take
that's
note.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the first one. What lies do you most often tell yourself?
I mean, if I told it to myself, would I know that it's a lie? Wouldn't I be trying to like?
I think
I don't think
you would
aware.
be aware that you are trying to tell yourself something you know isn't necessarily true to either, I don't know, justify something in the moment, or I feel like you're right, you would know.
Yeah.
But that's why it's an interesting question. Is there something that you sometimes find yourself telling yourself that you know just isn't true, but you still do it?
I think I'm pretty honest with myself. I would say I lie to other people.
That's the next one.
Right.
What lies do you most often tell other people?
Okay.
We can do that one.
I think I have a huge problem, and that's a hyperbole. I think I have a minor issue.
Okay. A gigantic issue.
It's just talking before I think. So I'm pretty honest about everything. I'm happy to discuss, but sometimes I catch myself. I'll just say something, like somebody will be like, "What you working on?" And I'll just immediately be like, feel guilty if I'm relaxing or something. So I'll just blurt out like, oh, "I'm working on this," even though I'm not. Right. I mean, I might be working on it, but I might just be in the little break at the moment, and who knows, listening to a song. And I'll just say that I'm working on it because I have this weird guilt thing about like, well, you should be working 100% of the time. But if I just took a moment, and I've been catching myself recently, that even if my roommate knocks on the door, I don't click away from what I'm doing to show a different screen or something,
Mm-hmm.
I just accept it. But it's still a hard habit to break.
I think that's a good one. I think that's an interesting one. I have started to do the same, I think, a little bit with like if Phoebe comes in and walks into the office and I'm watching a YouTube video, I'm very tempted to close it and get back to my screen page because I'm not hanging out with her for a reason. I'm focused on work.
Right.
Sometimes I just need to take a little sec to watch something.
Yeah.
Just to even get inspired or completely change what I'm thinking about so that I can think about whatever. And I've made a habit of like, I'm about to click away. I'm like, no, wait, I'm just going to. Yeah, I'm just taking a break. And it's fine.
It's totally fine. It's the same thing I told you on your trip. Well, I'll do it too. I'm like, how many pages of that book have you read?
Yeah.
And I'm like, 89. And I know it's 83 or something, but I'll just add it for no apparent reason.
But why do you think that is? Because everyone does that, I think. I mean, I do it. I don't know if everyone does. I think most people probably would.
I honestly think it's because I think it's a backwards. I think you want people to see you as doing more than you actually. It's an easy way to sort of make yourself look better in front of people, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I would argue now that, actually being completely honest, I don't know where I'm going with this, but
no, I think being honest
there's a nugget in there somewhere.
I think you can't be honest, totally honest, with even those insignificant situations unless you are actually confident and honest with yourself, and that you know that you're taking a break for a very legitimate reason, or you are on the page you are because that's how far you've read, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you feel like, I think it's an insecurity thing probably, that if people are lying about being busy when they aren't, it's because they feel like they should be and that they could be. Right. But they aren't. And they don't want to appear that way.
Right. And that's definitely, I think it could be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
But for me personally, I think it's not a good thing. I shouldn't want to be the person who's like seen as like, oh, he works all the time. He never takes a break. It's stupid. I still see myself as a hard worker, but I also accept, I'm trying to accept that like, yeah, you can relax at night. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And you can be honest about it. And if your mom calls and it's like, what are you doing? You can be very honest about like, oh, I'm just taking the night off.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Rather than being like,
I think
I'm going to do all these things.
That only comes with just feeling, I guess, content with what you're doing.
Yeah. I think if you're aligned with how you're portraying yourself, it just makes you feel better.
I think like when we were just starting out, I was very much like, I am a crazy work person.
Right.
I need to at all times be doing something, or at least seem like I'm doing something, because I haven't yet proven or shown that it's going to work.
Right.
So if someone was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm watching a movie. I'd be like, aren't you starting a business? Do you even have any money? Like, do you know it's going to go well? And I couldn't answer yes to those questions. So I had to, well, first of all, try as hard as I could to actually work. But when I couldn't, make it look like I was, that at least in the eyes of other people, they saw me as I'm doing as much as I possibly can.
Right.
Which I felt like I was. But even, taking a break, you take for a reason, so you'll work better afterwards.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like I could say that necessarily.
Yeah.
I think now that we're just able to, point to some things that we're done, things are moving in the right direction.
I think that's
feel a little bit more confident in what we're doing. And it's working. And
the proving thing is massive.
Yeah.
I had a massive problem with it before I had done my feature film. So people would be like, oh, that's so cool. And I'd be like, no, I haven't actually done anything. Like, I don't know. So you do feel the need to constantly be working on your script or constantly be doing something. And now I'm like, I just feel like I have proven myself a little.
I guess
I do think I will work harder than most people. I'm confident in that. It doesn't need to be 100% of the day.
I guess I felt that a little bit these past couple of days. It's like we very much created this time to work on our feature-length films. I was like, if I'm not working on it, then I'm wasting this time. Yeah. I was very aware of just small things taking up longer than they should be, and becoming a little bit anxious about chores. And like, we were supposed to paint. Right. And we didn't quite get to that because I totally forgot about that. Like, we made a step in the right direction. We bought the stuff and we like filled all the holes. And now we're taking a break, and that felt good. But I was very much like, oh, but that's like a whole day that I'm supposed to be working on this thing, but I'm not.
But also, mind you, it was the weekend.
Yeah.
Which again, we said we don't have weekends, which goes back to my point of like, why would I feel guilty about taking an hour off on a Sunday when I fucking know everyone, not everyone else, but like most of the world is enjoying themselves. And here I am for like 30 minutes, like, oh, I'm wasting time doing something like fun. It's so stupid.
It is.
So I've come to terms with that breaks are good. I'm still working on the Sunday. Fuck you, anyone's trying to say we're not working hard enough. It's just, at my own pace, at my own time.
All right. Here's another question.
Hit it.
What is something that you believe that most people either disagree with or would find crazy that you believe?
I don't know. Do you have something?
Yeah, I think. I guess I can answer.
Yeah.
Throw it right back at me.
Yeah.
Well,
do you believe in magic?
No. No, but something like being a vegan, you're definitely a minority. I believe that it's morally wrong to kill animals and eat them, and most people don't.
Right.
So that's something where I don't think people necessarily think I'm crazy for thinking that, but it's definitely something that most people, at least by their actions, disagree with.
Right.
Or religion. I don't know if that's so much, because it is, we live in a much more like modern world, at least our contained
Copenhagen,
world. Yeah, where people religion isn't really a thing, so it doesn't feel like you're believing something that most people don't, but statistically, the world is more religious than not.
Yeah.
So believing that there isn't a God and that there's nothing after death and stuff like that, I guess. But then I think something that I'm, at least with the film I'm working on scripting, that is something I'd consider a little bit controversial, that I'm starting to believe more and more, is that you as a person are both responsible and are choosing to be or not to be happy.
Yeah, I've heard you say that before.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely something that would rub a lot of people the wrong way. We can get into that if you want to, but is there anything that comes to mind that you believe that you'd think most other people wouldn't? I think it's an interesting exercise because it is uncomfortable to say, because you obviously believe something.
Right.
And then other people don't. And it's like, well, I shouldn't say that. But I think there is something positive about voicing that, if there is something.
No, that's good. I don't know.
It's fair.
The only place my mind is going is like, I don't know, weird like science, like quantum physics or something, where I'm like, there's no reason for me to believe that. I just have heard it from a trusted source. So I'm kind of, some people might think that like multiple universes, an infinite amount of universes where every single state of you exists, right?
Yeah.
Would be a weird thing to believe in, but I do believe in that. And I don't think it takes away from free will.
No, so you believe that there are an infinite amount of universes that exist, and that the universe we are in is just one of those infinite universes panning out in just one of those ways. And that...
Yeah, as if it's a structure of like... If you take every possible thing that could have happened from the Big Bang to the end of the universe...
Mm-hmm.
and put that all into one giant structure.
Every possible
everything
outcome
that could happen, will happen, everything that could have possibly happened has already happened.
Uh-huh.
And we're just experiencing a slice of that.
Right.
But I couldn't say that these things haven't happened yet. So things in the future, in my mind, already exist. It's just more... I don't know, our perception of where we are in a certain part of this structure. And because every option exists, it still gives you, I guess, choice. It's not like there's a set path, but every possible choice, Burning Boat is successful and Burning Boat isn't successful, already has happened. That's kind of a weird one.
Definitely. I think it's first of all hard to wrap your head around. And that's maybe why most people don't, or wouldn't be like, oh yeah, that.
Yeah,
I agree.
And I'm not qualified to talk about it either. It's one of those things you kind of just read about, and it's just something very interesting.
This next or last question, rather, I'm realizing is kind of similar to this one. But I'll ask it anyways. Is there anything that you do or anything that you think that scares you? And if so, what is it and why do you think it scares you?
I say that again?
Is there anything you do, like an action that you will continuously do, or a way of thinking that you will always kind of think that scares you? Like a thought process that maybe you don't understand, or something that you're not comfortable with, but you do it anyways.
Right.
And if so, what is it and why do you think it scares you? I'm realizing these are kind of hard questions.
They're hard because I'm in such a positive state of mind at the moment.
And I think that's why, because you were saying that last week, and that's, I think, why I'm asking more like this kind of question.
Right.
Because I wanted to ask something where I didn't feel like I knew the answer.
I think something I always think about a lot is, and we've definitely talked about this, and the only example that kind of, it's just an analogy, don't read too much into it, but the idea of wanting to experience something like what would you call it, like lunacy, or like a completely crazy person who hallucinates and is paranoid and let's say something like this. I mean, something you would call like a mental illness or something.
Yeah.
There's a curiosity as to like
what
would that be like? So there can sometimes be, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I make some choices that are like, well, how close can I get to that before and come back with some knowledge of that or some
so get the
experience.
Get the positives
of course, you could never
out of that experience without the negative fallout.
Right. Because, or another example might be, I don't know, if you want to make a film about love, it might be a good idea. You might think it's a good idea to get into a relationship and have it be completely shit. So that you have that experience, so that you can then realistically kind of talk about it in the film. Because sometimes I find there's certain things you want to talk about, but before you talk about them, you feel like you need to earn your stripes in a way.
There has to be something that gives you the right to have something to say about it.
Exactly. Which is weird, because you might think that it's, your experience are going to determine what you want to talk about. I think sometimes you find interest in things that you have no experience in, and then in hindsight, you want to create some experiences so that you do have a reason or a valid perspective or just something interesting to say. It's really easy to boil it down like that. I don't think that's actually like the thought process I'd be going through, but I think that's weird. It doesn't necessarily scare me.
For me, I think it's very similar then. If it's like a feeling like you need to earn the right to have something to say about something, I'm so drawn to mountaineering that I really want to know what it feels like to have the urge to go further than is safe so that I can have something to say about it.
Right.
And that scares me because I don't know how I would react in that kind of situation, and if I would put myself in danger. I guess that's obviously scary.
But here's the perfect situation. So like what you had just said is that you think, is that off? Definitely. It's been off for a while, eh? Oh. What were you just saying that you thought?
Mountaineering.
No, with the people's happiness.
I was saying that I think that people are both responsible and choose whether or not they are going to be happy or unhappy. So that's a very simplified and boiled down statement.
Yeah.
But I could explain why I feel that.
I'd be interested. I mean, like the first thing my mind would go to is like exactly that. You don't have all the experiences, so it's hard to make a statement like that for everyone. The first thing I would be like is like a manic depressed person.
I would say
you don't know what that feels like.
No,
but this is what I'm talking about. Where then, in my mind, in the stupidest way, I'd be like, well, I want to feel what that person is feeling, so that I then do have the right to talk about it.
Yeah.
But that's a sick thing to think, because why would you want to get yourself in that state of mind?
Right.
Or even assume that you could.
I think that one thing to make clear is that you can never experience everything, even within a given subject. I don't think that's possible. I think there's always something more to learn.
Yeah, totally.
You could never experience everything and have the all-powerful insight to what something is like. And that, if that were the case, then no one should ever be allowed to say anything about anything.
I agree, but you can be. Obviously, people are qualified.
I agree.
And I would say there's a line, maybe not a super sharp line, but a blurry line. At some point, you're like, yeah, that guy's pretty qualified to be talking about this.
Right.
And this guy is not qualified to be talking about this. I'm not saying you are or you aren't. But yeah, I guess for that, why do you think you are qualified? I guess would be the question.
I don't think I feel like I'm qualified. I just feel like I feel a certain way, and that there's a logical argument to it. That if you take, for example, mental illness,
right,
and you put it on a scale of a suicidal, manic depressed person to someone who suffers mildly from anxiety, like I think most people do. You could place everyone somewhere along that line, and that for the people who are severely suffering with something, they have the hardest time getting to a state of being happy. They have the most to do, and for most of them who are way down there, there's absolutely nothing they probably can do because they're so chemically imbalanced, or whatever the reason might be, that even if they did everything humanly possible within their lifetime, they still wouldn't be able to do anything enough to get them to a state of what we could argue would be happiness.
Right. But doesn't that go against the idea that, or are you saying they're responsible for their misery?
No, I think then I'd have to change my statement a little bit and say that there's definitely it's kind of like, again, it feels almost wrong to simplify it like that. And I kind of want to take back saying that exactly like that.
Right.
But that everyone is responsible and can choose to do something about what they are dealing with, whether it be chemical imbalance or purely something a way that they are choosing to think.
Right.
And that it's easier for some people than others, but there is always something that can be done, and it's your responsibility to try to do that. And that,
I see.
Again, I guess in the end, if you are someone who is so far out there, even if you could get halfway back, that would be good.
Yeah.
And that you did that, and
So
you became more happy because of it.
The state of mind is it's more about they have a responsibility to try and do something about it rather than well, you stupid fuck, why aren't you happy?
Why aren't you still? Yeah, no, not at all that. But I do have an issue with this notion that if you suffer from depression or anxiety, or you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, you are at the mercy of something completely out of your control, and that it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
That's, I think, where my statement comes from.
Okay.
Does that make more sense
Yeah,
than what
definitely.
I said first? Yeah.
Definitely.
Cool.
What was the last question again?
Something you do or think that scares you. Oh, that's why we're talking about this.
Right.
Was with the mountaineering. So you were saying that for me to say that, shouldn't I experience kind of the worst of it before I can say something like that, or at least be qualified in some way? At least that's where we got into what I was just saying.
Yeah.
So with the mountaineering, it's like, I don't know, something about the idea of being like completely, what's the word? What's that story of some ship that sails past an island with mermaids and everyone's always tempted?
I think that's Homer's Odyssey. Don't quote me on that. And those are the sirens.
Mm-hmm. And they're so drawn by the sirens.
By the song of the sirens.
They can't help but steer that way, and they all get killed by the mermaids
Something
every
like
time. That. What's the word that when you're, tie me up so that I'll be
Restrain?
Too tempted to pursue. What is it? Just temptation?
Oh, temptation?
Temptation?
I don't know.
Something along those lines. To be so lost in the moment on a mountain or something.
Yeah.
So completely consumed by the experience that you would make a decision that you ultimately would regret making because of the just awe of the mountain you're on and the situation you're finding yourself in, and I don't know, making some kind of irrational conclusion to continue to the summit even though there's a storm coming and you know that you're probably going to die because of it.
Right.
Like there's so many stories you hear of people doing that. Yeah, and I'm just so drawn to the idea of being pushed and placed in situations where that kind of thinking is even something that occurs, where you'd have to make a decision like that.
Right.
And I want to be in that situation and make the right decision.
Right.
But that scares me because that's inviting the experience of making the wrong decision. To be able to make the right decision, I have to accept that I might not.
Right.
If that makes sense. I could just not place myself there. So that's something that scares me a little bit.
Probably rightfully so. I mean, that's a scary...
Isn't that also kind of what you're saying a little bit with wanting to experience something like extreme mental illness just so that you could have an experience where you could come out of it?
Yeah,
what if you couldn't come out of it?
That's more like knowledge. Yeah, well, that's the issue. That's
right?
exactly
So you're accepting I guess if you were to pursue something like that, you have to be accepting the risk of not being able to overcome it. Or to be consumed by the disease.
Correct.
And that's scary, I guess, to want to be that curious, to risk that much. But I think that's also what makes things exciting, is that there is,
It's just different experiences in general as well, where there is I don't know, I've been really interested in solitary confinement.
Yeah, I know.
I watch some like prison shows and stuff, right?
I watch a lot of prison shows.
You hear about it and, they'll talk about it and stuff. But for whatever reason, I'm like, oh, that would just be interesting to lock yourself in a room for a week and not talk to anybody and have somebody bring you food and just kind of see
what happens.
Which I don't think is a weird thing. I think a lot of people would actually be probably interested in doing that. It's sort of the idea of like locking yourself in a log cabin, out in the middle of a forest. I think I've heard a few friends just be curious about what that would be like.
I think most people would do a lot to avoid that.
Yeah, well, it's counter. I mean, I don't think it's going to feel good.
No, and I think most people wouldn't want to even learn something knowing that it would not feel good. They would bypass the knowledge because of the discomfort and the pain.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But I think that's, yeah.
I think
it's
would be
important.
curious, but I'm happy not knowing.
Yeah, I think the main, for me, what works best in life is to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And find enough comfort in that, right?
But be comfortable being uncomfortable is something
right.
I'm definitely
if
very...
you just try to be comfortable, I would
Ooh, that gets me really excited.
Yeah, me too.
That's why I like rock climbing, is being up on the wall. Even though I know I'm on a rope, I convince myself I'm not on a rope, and that if I can't do this move, I'm going to fall.
Yeah.
And being comfortable enough to like get a little bit giddy about it is very exciting. Or like at the end of a 21-kilometer run and you're just like in so much pain, being able to like almost like laugh at the pain and feel excited that you are experiencing this right now.
Yeah. And it's how far can you push it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are, like, making a film is a fucking nightmare. It's so uncomfortable. Like,
mm-hmm. It's worth
I'd
the
be
highs,
curious.
though.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's what I think it is. It comes down to, it's worth the feeling of getting to fulfilling that curiosity, fulfilling.
Because there's a lot of benefits that come out of. I mean, I would have never moved to Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
I would have never, made that film. Would have never taken the road trip. Would have never.
Being comfortable with the different outcomes that could happen from choosing something.
Yeah, and
even the bad ones, because you'll learn something from them.
Exactly.
It's a good way of thinking.
And we talked about this too. This is an interesting one. The difference between, do you make decisions based on pain or pleasure?
Mm.
And for me, I think a lot of when I decide to really change something.
That's what it was. It's change something.
Right.
Do you change something based off of feeling a lot of pain and you feel like you need to change it, or you feel like making that change will give you a lot of pleasure?
Right.
That's what you asked me. And I think I said, at the moment,
pleasure.
I feel like I'm making the most decisions based off of what I think I will feel pleasure from. but ironically, the decisions will involve me going through a lot of pain.
Right.
And you were saying kind of...
I think the same, I have to be really uncomfortable with something to want to. So for example, it's like perfect examples of cigarettes. I have to get to a point where it's bad enough that I'm willing to make a long-term decision. It's very hard for me to be comfortable with what I'm doing if I'm smoking 1 cigarette a day. If it were possible for me to do that for like a year, I think it'd be so hard for me to stop because I'd be like, well, I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
I don't really have a problem with it.
Yeah.
But for me, if I go down this path, which I always do, is like 1, then 2, then 4, then 6, then 8 a day. At some point, I'm like, holy fuck, this is so bad. I need to change this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like all my decisions are made like that. But I'm also very sensitive to like what makes me... I could have a good paying job, but still be very uncomfortable in that situation. Be like, fuck, I have to change something. Let's quit and move. It's kind of my solution. It seems to be working.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should wrap it up. But I really do like ending the podcasts with something a little bit more deep, I guess, or
yeah, it's probably
a little more personal, if that's the right word. You were talking about doing like a full episode that was like that.
Yes,
that's an idea. Let us know what you guys think, but we will see you on next week's episode of Burning Boat Business.